What does it really take for men to master their sexuality and create extraordinary relationships? Such a golden question. And today's guest, Kevin Anthony, has spent over a decade helping men, women, and couples unlock the best sex of their lives. He is a certified sexologist, tantra counselor, and the host of the Love Lab podcast. Such a good name for a podcast. And he's here to reveal the secrets behind stamina, confidence, and true sexual mastery. I'm Dr. Willow Brown. I'm here with my dear partner in crime, Leah Piper, and we are the Sex Reimagined podcast. Thank you so much for all your amazing likes, shares, and subscribes. We are truly grateful for your wonderful presence and attention, and we're so thrilled to have Kevin with us today.
Yes, we are thrilled to have Kevin. There's so many great things we're going to dive into, so please tune in. Oh, baby, get turned on and fall in love with Kevin Anthony.
Welcome to the Sex Reimagined podcast, where sex is shame-free and pleasure-forward. Let's get into the show.
Welcome,
Kevin.
Well, thank you for having me. You know, you commented on the name of my podcast, and I want to say that Sex Reimagined is awesome also, because what we're going to be talking about today is helping people reimagine what sex could be. This is such a huge part of what I do with men. It's like shifting the mindset about what sex really is and what it can be. So I'm excited to have that conversation.
Well, where do you begin with men? Because I know from our work with men, you know, we get men from all walks of life, and some have been on the journey, the sexual expansion revolutionary journey, and some are just getting started. So where do you begin with somebody who's like fresh on the path and they're like, I don't know, but something's got to shift?
Well, if they're really fresh on the path, if they're at that point of like, I don't really know what I don't know, but I know something has to happen, we got to really start from the beginning. And from the beginning really is explaining to them what sex could be. So here we go. Let's talk about what your sex normally looks like, what it's been like your whole life. And now let's talk about the potential that sex can have, right? And so we have to sort of whet their appetites and get them to see that they could be experiencing something so much more than what they're currently experiencing. Now, you know, a lot of times when men come to me, they're kind of like, yeah, you know, I want to last longer, or, you know, she doesn't want to have sex anymore. And, you know, we used to have good sex, but not really anymore. And so a lot of time for those guys, I really have to tell them something they don't want to hear.
Uh-oh.
Which is, if she's not interested in sex, it's most likely because she's not getting the kind of sex she wants. It's literally that simple.
Ding, ding. Oh my God. Did you hear that, everybody? Men and women alike, all genders, all orientations. Yeah, it's like if we're not enjoying it, then we're not getting what we would enjoy. And for a lot of women, they don't know what they would enjoy. So it's hard for them to guide or orient their partner in the right direction. So how do you take men down that road?
Well, like I said, it's something that they usually don't want to hear, right? Mm-hmm. Because they think, I thought I was doing good, right? What do you mean? You know, she doesn't like the sex. I just thought she wasn't that into sex. And it's like, there's this misconception out there that women don't want sex as much as men, that women aren't as horny as men are. And that is complete BS.
Yeah. Total myth, people. Total myth.
Absolutely. When women are having great sex, they want it. They want it, and they will come for it. They will ask for it. They will jump on you, right? They will spontaneously pull your pants down and initiate, right?
Yeah.
It will have. So if that's not happening in your relationship, there's a reason for it. Now, obviously, there can be lots of reasons. There can be built up resentment, relationship problems. But one of the main reasons is the men have never truly learned how to show up in the bedroom and give her the kind of sex that makes her want more. So how do we start? Well, we got to start by defining for men, what is it that she's actually looking for? You know, I had this conversation on another podcast recently where the host was kind of indicating, well, most men just really don't care and they just want what they want. And I said, well, you know, that's true for some men, for sure. But that's not what I see mostly. What I see mostly is they just don't know. They don't have a clue. They've never been taught, right? And so they're just going on, you know, what they learned from their buddies or what they learned in porn, right? And it's like, we all know porn sex is not real in any way, shape, or form. Right? So, Mr. Plumber walks in and suddenly she's all over him and she loves everything he does, right?
Yes, every woman loves to be railed really
And
hard.
yeah, and it's super fast and furious, and there's no lead up, there's no warm up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we need to rewrite that whole narrative, and we need to go back to here's what she's actually looking for. And I would say most of the men I work with are open to that. When they hear it, they go, "Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. Well, how do I do that?" Most men that I work with are in that place. But I do occasionally get men who are in the space of, "Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work." Like, really? Like, that's what I got to do? To which case I say, you just have to be okay with that. You just have to get used to, like, if you want to have sex with women, this is the way it has to be. And if you're not willing to do that, then just, be celibate, have a great masturbation practice, or go have sex with men because,
Yeah, or pay for it.
Yeah.
or pay for it. Sure, that's another option.
Yeah, save your money, baby. So, all right, well then demystify this. What is it that women want that they're not getting? What would make having sex worth it for women?
Okay, we'll start first with presence, with his masculine presence. This is one of the biggest things I hear women asking for is they want him to be present. Now, the funny thing is when you say that to guys, well, of course I'm present. I'm right there
I'm
with
right
her.
here.
I'm right here. Like,
They don't know what that means exactly.
showed up
to her.
reporting for duty. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not what we mean by presence, right?
Right.
What we mean by presence is that you are actively engaged with her, right? So that might look like, looking into her eyes rather than closing your eyes and just being lost in your own fantasy or pleasure. That might look like actually communicating with her. That might look like paying attention to all the little signs, to see where she's at. Is she warmed up enough yet? Are her cheeks flushed yet? Is she making eye contact? Is she making noises? What's her body doing? Is it tense? Is it relaxing? What's happening in her genitals? There's a whole module I teach with my clients where I literally have pictures of the stages of arousal of women's genitals to show them, like, this is what it looks like when you've done nothing. Here's what it looks like when you've done a little bit. Here's what it looks like when she's really ready to go. And it blows men's mind when they see that. They're like, I never realized there was such a difference, because I point out things like you can see the color of the outer labia change. You can see that they get engorged and swell. You can see that the clitoris will actually get engorged. You can see that the inner lips will open up a little bit. You can see that some wetness is starting to form. There's a lot of stuff that you can see that can give you some clues as to where she's at. But if you're too focused on what you want and getting to your orgasm or being stuck in some fantasy, whatever it is, or sometimes it's even just, I'm trying not to come yet, right? All of those things keep you mentally distracted and you're not there. And one of the things I tell men all the time is like, the second you check out, she feels it. She knows it. You can be looking straight in her eyes, but if you're mentally checked out, she's like, where'd he go?
Where'd he go?
We can feel it in your touch. Your touch starts to feel clinical.
Yeah.
When you're thinking too hard about what to do next. I would also add that a lot of women haven't seen these pictures. So a lot of women don't even know what they look like. They don't even know how to associate the changes in their arousal with their changes in their vulva. And because, guys, let me tell you, if we knew, we would tell you. So this is also like a call to the women who are listening. Hey, check out your own vulva when you're touching yourself. Look at it when it's unaroused, and then turn it on some more for 5 minutes, and then look at it again, and then keep touching for another 5 minutes, and then look at it again and see how much it changes, because there's a real mind-body connection that will change the sensation of your arousal when you can see the proof of your arousal.
Yeah, and I think another thing too that happens for a lot of guys is they're it's funny, they think that they're focused on the woman. They're like, I'm present, I'm here, I'm going to make her feel a certain way. I'm going to do this hand movement the way that I've seen it in pornography, because that I know makes a woman feel good, right? So
That'll
it's like
make her
there's this
squirt. Yeah.
performative thing. So it's like they in their experience, they are really present and they're really focused on her. However, they're still not attuned to her, right? And also not attuned to themselves and the Shakti or the divine feminine essence that is alive in all of us. So there's so many layers, for everyone to learn.
If I could just bring up one more thing, maybe you can comment on this, Kevin. It's along the same lines that we're talking on. And I almost say it actually happens way before like the actual we're going to get it on moment. It's kind of like when she's telling you something and you're looking at your phone and she can tell you're not present, even though you could repeat back to her what she just said. Because what you do is you're looking for facts and data, but you're not actually attuning to her. You're not actually being with her. You're listening from a different place than when you're being intimate. And that's a higher level of presence. It's like, you're really with me. I have your attention. Your attention isn't split. And I think what causes some women to like maybe shut down or not be as interested in sex, it's having that experience over and over and over again where they feel like you're not really with me even when you're with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely starts before it's time to get it on. And that brings me to another thing, which is similar but yet different, which is, what I call connection, right? So there's presence, right? But you could be completely disconnected. You haven't sat down and checked in with each other all day long. And all of a sudden you show up, you go in the bedroom and it's like, okay, now I'm giving you my presence. But ladies, and I'm sure you can comment on this too. It's like, okay, great, you're present with me now in this moment, but I needed some connection before we even got to this moment, right? So you're right, it starts beforehand. It's like, take some time to sit down and connect. Like, how was your day? How are you doing? Give each other a little something to like get that feeling of, oh, here we are together again, right? Then you can transition into the bedroom. Then you can give presents.
Yeah, Esther Perel says that foreplay starts after the last orgasm. So once you have an orgasm, we're back to foreplay, baby.
Absolutely. So that's exactly, there's something I teach that I call the constant state of arousal. And that's that whole thing of where it's the little things you do day in and day out to stoke that arousal, to keep the fire going, right? To keep some desire happening so that you don't have to go from 0 on your arousal scale to a 5 when it's time to have sex. But part of that is as soon as sex is over, you go right back to the beginning of that constant state of arousal. And it's this constant loop that you keep running all the time. That's how you keep things hot and going.
I wonder, do men get kind of scared when you hear them say that? Like, oh my God, I have to think about arousal. Like, I've got to keep my arousal up.
I mean, for men, I think most of them
are like, they're like, I'm already always aroused. I'm walking around with this cock between my legs all the time. It's ready to go. Well, I think it's more like how do you impart to men how to keep that arousal alive inside of their female partners.
Yeah, and that's what it really comes down to. Because I think, as we just joked about, for most men, they're like, I'm either always aroused or I get there like that. It's not really a problem. But where they do have a problem when you start to introduce the constant state of arousal thing is, oh my God. And once again, that sounds like a lot of work. Like, I got to do what? Like, how do I maintain this? How do I do this? And so we really start by breaking it down and trying to make it simple and letting them know it doesn't require big, grand gestures to happen all the time. It's just the little things, Here's one that stokes the fire really, really well, and it's really simple. Keep your word. When you say you're going to take the trash out, when you say you're going to, whatever it is that she asks you to do, that's lubrication right there. Every time you say you're going to do something, you just follow through with it.
Oh, follow through. Yeah, because it builds so much trust, and trust is really what a lot of vulva owners need in order to drop into vulnerable intimacy.
Yeah, and it's what a lot of them actually don't have. And it might not be because of the person she's with. It could be because of an accumulation of experiences with the opposite sex that has distorted trust. It could also be that there's a part of her that she doesn't trust herself. So I think keeping your word is such great advice. Not only does it build trust, but I think it builds respect. And I think men need respect. Like there's that other thing of
we
how the
want
circuit
respect.
completes itself.
Yeah.
We want respect, but a lot of times we don't realize why we're not getting it.
Yes.
Right. Well, What's another good like lubrication tip for our guys out
Yeah,
there?
I love lubrication tips. These are great.
The other one that I often teach in the constant state of arousal is something called the appreciation game, which is just making sure that every day you take a little bit of time to share something that you love and or appreciate about your partner. Just little things. And this is another one where they go, every day? I usually tell them, I go, every day you got to share 3 things that you love and or appreciate about your partner. And at first they're like, oh my God. And then, I'll assign that to them as their homework. After like the first couple of days, they go, yeah, that wasn't so bad. After about a week, they're like, I'm running out of things. I don't know what to do. And that's where you say, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
It's little stuff. It's like, I loved the way that, you put that extra spice in the meal that you made today, right? Or, just the little things. Just notice the little things. I love that you did something slightly different with your hair today, right? Or even if she did nothing different with her hair today, just say, your hair looks really good today, right?
Yeah,
the way
you
you
can
smell.
repeat too.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to say that every
Yeah.
day. Your hair looks great today, honey.
Or if she tells a story, be like, God, I really love the way you tell a story like that. Or I really appreciate how you responded to your colleague, or, it can be, there's so many things, but yeah, you have to kind of coach your mind to look. I think it goes back to listening again, like you're listening with your eye. You have to listen with your whole body.
Yeah. Well, and then if you really want to get to her, you appreciate her presence that she brings. And
Yeah.
she's going to be like, wow, you must be present to see my presence. Hello. Yeah.
That's a great one too. I mean, you come home from work as a man and you want to talk about your day and she listens to you. You can simply say at the end of that, I really appreciate how you really gave me your attention. You really listened to how my day was today. It literally could be that simple. And I think the problem is men way overcomplicate it. And they're like trying to think of like all these different things. I'm like, just keep it simple. Yeah. If you spend enough time with your woman, you will have plenty of little things that you can share.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I often tell women, find one thing he's doing right. And bring it to his attention, because we spend more time telling men what they're doing wrong. And people thrive under positive recognition. People don't really thrive over criticism and negative confirmation. So I think, it's basically saying the same thing, just a little bit different.
Yeah. And another thing that I like to orient people to, couples especially who've been together for a long time, is like, what are your core values? What are your top 2 core values? What are the things that are so important to you? And then to orient your appreciations around that.
Can you give an example of that, just for people to orient around what values are? Like, what would be your top 2?
Like my top 2 are, one of my top ones is understanding, like to be understood. And so if there was, a partner who was like, God, I love the way that you take the time to be present and really like understand the way our kid is, dealing with such stuff at school, or the way you understand the way, what I'm going through at work, or the way you understand your patients, or whatever it is. And then also, like, another example, an ex of mine, one of his top core values was follow through, which, is such an important one. And I see the value in it. It creates trust, but it wasn't a value that I really oriented to, because I was like, people don't follow through. Like, you just can't, that's the way the cookie crumbles. That was kind of the message I grew up with, So, but if I could go back to that relationship and, orient my appreciations, like, gosh, I really thank you for, doing what you said you were going to do, and texting when you said you were going to text, and showing up when you said you were going to show up. Like, it really allows me to drop into a deeper state of trust with you, which I did have in that relationship.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah,
you got
that's
more
great.
lube? You got more lube for us, Kevin?
Yeah.
What else
give
you
us
got?
more.
Well, so, okay. Other than those types of things, then we can start moving a little bit towards like the physical type stuff, right? So, hugging each other frequently, taking time to cuddle, maybe when you wake up in the morning for a few minutes, or maybe at night before you fall asleep. Here's what I was sharing with a couple I was coaching recently, and I said, just every time you walk by, grab her butt. And then I said, hold on. I said, but you got to make sure you know what she likes. if she doesn't like her butt grab, don't grab her butt. So ask her what types of little, physical affection would she actually like and would turn her on. And
Yeah.
I no sooner did I finish saying that she goes, yeah, I don't like when he grabs my butt. But then she came back and she said, but the reason why I don't like when he grabs my butt is because he grabs it too firmly. And I said, there you go. All you have to do is adjust the way that you touch her. Right?
Adjust the grab. Yeah.
So little things like that, when you're just walking by and, grabbing her butt in a way that she likes, or, wrapping your arms around her and giving her a hug, giving her a passionate kiss, little things like that spread throughout the day go a long, long way.
Yeah, I love it when my husband kisses the tip of my nose and my third eye. I think he's going to go for my lips, and then he goes somewhere else. And it's like, I don't know, if it does something on the inside that makes me feel giddy and
Exhilarating.
sweet and a little like girl-like. I don't know what it is, but it does it for me.
Yeah, I hear most women also say they really would like their men to kiss them more often. That's a big one that I often hear. So that's something that can be done that's fairly easy. Now, of course, when women are saying that, they don't necessarily mean, the peck on the lips or the peck on the cheek. They want an actual
Passionate kiss.
that's more
Right.
passionate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I often hear women wish their partner kissed differently. And is it like, can you teach them how to kiss? And I'm like, well, the best way to learn how to be your partner's best kisser they ever had is to pay attention to how they kiss you and then kiss them back the way they kiss you. And then you'll start to feel, oh, okay, that's their style. All right, not too much tongue in the beginning, and then deepen, and then where they like the nipples. All those things can really help you, again, listen for how your partner likes to make out. And I think one of the key things with couples, long-term couples especially, is they forget to make out. They forget to kind of be those teenagers when you could pay attention long enough to like make out for an hour. I mean, I don't remember the last time I even made out for an hour. I haven't put that on the to-do list.
Well, when we were younger, we used to make out for an hour because a lot of times that's all we could do.
That's all you
That's
could
right.
do.
So maybe take some things off the table and then see how long your foreplay
I
can
still
keep
get
going.
into the make out for an hour or more period. I think I had a make out session the other day for like 4 hours, right? Because
Wow.
let's hold off on the sex, right? And so it's like we're only going to take it so far, and it's fun. And
Yeah.
it does take you back into that like younger, more like, oh, it's naughty if we go any further. It's like it's not being able to take things further does kind of like create more charge and more
Yeah, more
excitement.
like sexual tension.
Yeah, so you can always play with that too. I think in long-term relationships where it's like, okay, well, I'm taking this off the table for the next, day or two or whatever, just to kind of like create more longing and desire and charge.
Yeah, that's part of the constant state of arousal is to create that charge. And one of the things, I tell men all the time, like, if you want your woman to give you more blowjobs, then you have to make sure that you don't require her to continue until you finish.
Yeah.
Because that's how a lot of men still view it. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you started, so now you got to finish me, and now I
Right.
have to ejaculate. And it's like,
Right.
sometimes she might not want that. She might not want to do it that long. She might not want to deal with you ejaculating all over her, in her mouth, wherever it is, right?
Right.
But if you take that off the table, yeah, she might be willing to give you a blowjob for a couple of minutes here or there, right? Which means you'll get them
Right.
more frequently. And if you're not finishing, and this is what made me think of this, is this idea that
You're
you're going to
longer
walk away
stay.
from that. Both of you are going to be turned on, and you're going to have that energy that you can carry through the rest of your day. It creates that anticipation, like, ooh, when can we get back to that, right?
Yeah, that's great advice.
So it sounds like with your men that are coming to you, you're really just turning everything on its head, right? You're really just enlightening them to a whole another orientation around what sexuality could be.
Yeah, well, if they're coming in with more of the default, sort of masculine view of what sex is, then yeah, we are radically changing that.
And how does that change like everything else in their lives, all the other sectors, their career, their relationship to their family and their home and their health and their kids?
If they can really embody this and really make it part of who they are, they will see that first their sex life is transforming. And instantly when their sex life is transforming, when she's wanting more sex, when she's asking for it more often, when she's, providing more, little blowjobs here and there, when, she's having bigger orgasms, maybe more orgasms, instantly he feels more confident. He's like, I am the stud. Look what I can do, right? So he's feeling that. And then, obviously the relationship dynamic is going to improve because she's happier now. Her needs are being met, right? She's getting a lot of the little things that she wanted, the appreciations, the recognition, the presence, and the great sex, right? So now they're relating in a much better way, right? So now his stress is reduced. He's feeling like Superman because of all this. And then he can literally take that out everywhere else. So instead of showing up to work the next day being all angry and pissed off because he hasn't had sex in a month, right? He's showing up and he's happy. And he's like fully in his power and he's confident and he's going into that meeting and he's saying, here's what we need to do, right? It really does have the power to transform every part of your life. Everybody knows what it's like when your relationship is not going well. You know how it makes you feel. You know how down you feel. You know how grumpy you are. You know how you end up snapping at other people. Well, the reverse is also true, right?
Can you say something about, when your partner just feels so obligated that they kind of shrug off your touch like constantly, whether it's sexual or non-sexual? She's gotten to the point where her nervous system just gets nervous because any kind of touch makes her feel like she's going to be obligated to finish something. Like even just your affection makes her tense because if she gives you an opening, it means you're going to want to go all the way. And I see this happen in relationships that have had this dynamic for a long time where, she keeps on rejecting him more and more and more because any sign of affection means I want something and you have to give it to me. So does that dynamic show up in your office?
Oh, absolutely. This is exactly what I was talking about in the beginning when I have to tell men something they don't want to hear, which is if she doesn't want sex, she's not getting the kind of sex that she wants. This is absolutely related to that. Same thing with constant state of arousal and, her being willing to give blowjobs. Like it is exactly that dynamic, is that when she feels that she's obligated to do something that she either doesn't want to do or doesn't want to do for the same amount of time or doesn't want to do in the same way, then every time there's something that shows up like that, like a touch or an advance of some sort, she's going to have a negative, stimulus to that, right? It's like, no, that means I'm going to have to do this thing I don't want to do. And whether she's conscious of that reaction or not, it's going to show up. Right? And so this is where we have to rewire men's brains and be like, you have to realize that you have to create an environment where she feels like she's not obligated to do anything. So the perfect example is what I was just talking about with the blowjobs. If you want to get blowjobs more often, then she has to know that she can do it whenever she wants for however long she wants. She doesn't have to finish you. It can just be a minute. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 20 minutes. It could be whatever it is, as long as she knows she's not obligated to do something. Because let's face it, if starting a blowjob means you have to finish him and he has to ejaculate in your mouth, how often are you really up for that?
Well, I'm sort of thinking of the guy who she's not even having sex. He hasn't had a blowjob in 6 years. Like all of sex and blowjobs are actually way off the table. She's gotten to the place where she's like, I'm not fucking you. So like he's actually got to start way further away.
Yeah,
I'm just kind of curious, like, is it differentiating affectionate touch versus sexual touch? How do you help him on the path when like that door has been closed and he's lost probably 95% hope that she'll ever open the door back?
Okay, so that's a whole other story. It's one thing to have her not want to go along with it all the time because she's not always in the mood for whatever he thinks has to happen. But it's another thing if the door is basically closed. Mm-hmm. If the door is closed, you have to figure out why that door got closed. And most likely, it probably does have to do with the way you touched her and that sort of thing. But I would say probably 90% of the time, there are even bigger problems than that in the relationship. There are a whole bunch of things that are not happening. You're not keeping your word. You're not connecting. Like there's some sort of thing that's really in the way that's caused you to be really disconnected. So you got to start by bringing that connection back together again. Like you were saying before, take some things off the table. Like if the door is already shut, sex has got to be off the table. Like that can't even really come into the picture until you've reestablished a connection where you're feeling like, oh yeah, I actually enjoy being with this person. I feel connected to them. I'm starting to feel some of that love and affection that we had, way back when.
Mhm.
That's got to happen first before you get anywhere near how do we have sex again.
And
Yeah.
so what you're speaking to is like for them to find another style of intimacy, maybe like in emotional intimacy or in a creative project together, some other
Mm.
form of intimacy where they can come together and they can find a connection point. And but then still the question I have is like how can men in that sphere that they're in with their partner, how can they provide a sense of no obligation? Like, how can they impart that? Like,
Mm.
hey, let's go do this, swing dancing class together or something totally off that they haven't done before, pattern interrupt. Like, let's go do this thing together just to do it, without the obligation of like that this has to lead to some other form of intimacy that I know is off the table for you.
Well, the way I look at any relationship, it's a team. It's a team effort, right? And so you always want to approach anything that you're going to do of like, what's in the best interest of the team. And if you can see it from that point of view, then you realize like, if it works for me, but it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for the team, right? So from that perspective, it's like, I can't obligate you to do something because if it's not working for you, it's not working for me ultimately because it's not working for the team. So there's a mindset shift around that, which is like, you have to understand that we're approaching this as a team. How can we get our relationship back on track? Which means you both have to be open to whatever that takes and realizing that, you might have to compromise something that you think, should be a requirement or an obligation. Like you just have to let go of that. Like I'll use the analogy, like if I'm teaching a couple communication, the very first thing on the list of all the communication best practices is you have to create an environment where you both feel safe to show up and talk about anything. It doesn't matter how potentially triggering it is. If you don't have that in your relationship, then every other thing down the chain of communication is going to be compromised to some extent. You have to be able to show up and talk about anything, right? In a safe environment where you feel like your partner is not going to jump all over you or, have a crazy reaction or judge you or anything like that. It's kind of the same thing with like, how do we get the relationship back on track? Okay, we're a team and we're working together for the common goal of reconnecting as a couple and enhancing our relationship. We need to be open to all the possibilities that incurs. And that means if something doesn't work for you, then we put it aside and we find something else. And we work together like that over and over until we find what works for both of us.
I have a question. I don't know if you have an answer for this, but it is known in a lot of therapeutic communities that men don't get oftentimes as much out of therapy than their partner does, where a lot of men report that they feel like the therapist sides with the woman. And then couples therapy becomes less effective. I'm curious, what sets apart like you as a male coach? And do you have have you tuned into any of this? I'm just kind of curious that I think a lot of men might actually find working with someone like you or a male therapist, maybe that'd be more successful than working with a female therapist. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, like everybody has their own biases, right? So if you're seeing a female therapist who has her own history of trauma in relating to males, granted, she's supposed to put that aside and stay professional. But let's be honest, that's a very difficult thing to do. It's like when we tell people like, well, you work for the government, so you're supposed to leave religion out of it. Yeah, except if you really believe in your religion, every decision you make is based on your beliefs of your religion, right? So like these things can be hard to separate out for most people. I would say for me, when I'm working, especially when I'm working with couples, is I'm happy to point out the problems that they're both doing. Like, equal opportunity, call you out,
Yeah.
right? Like because that's really, you have to do that. This is the only way you're going to get to the core of the issues, and everything is a co-creation. I almost never see a situation where the behavior that one person is doing is 100% them, right? So even if somebody's doing, let's say she's being, really, really bitchy towards him constantly, like snapping at him, complaining, criticizing, all of that stuff. Okay, that is her behavior. But what is that in response to? It's probably in response to something that he's doing on his end, right? So this idea of saying, well, it's all her fault or it's all his fault, I rarely find that that's the case. There's usually some dynamic between the two of them where you could point out and say, okay, yeah, he did this, but if you reacted to it this way, it would shift, right? And so we work together that way.
Yeah. Then once again, you're reorienting to the team. So I feel like when you're talking about the team, this is such age-old wisdom, but it's like there's 3 people inside of a relationship that is 2 people. There's you, there's them, and then there's the third party, which is the union of you two. And I think it was like Thich Nhat Hanh who talks about like when you get into your car, you are your car, right? It's not like your car is one body and your body is another body. It's like you are getting into a union with that vehicle. And so it's the same like when you get into a relationship where it's like, okay, we are together. This is a relationship. It's like you're stepping into a vehicle. And now the you that is your own sovereign being and sovereign self has this other vehicle to get into when it comes to relating to the union of the 2 of you.
I think it's such a simple concept, this idea of a team. And yet, I mean, most of the time when I teach to couples, they kind of go, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Right. It's
And I'm
amazing.
just like,
Well,
it's
we live in-
amazing to me.
We live in a culture that prizes individualization. So
Totally.
like it's all about the individual. I mean, you look at everywhere and it's kind of about me. How am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I
Yeah, even
getting?
just the word of the iPhone and the iPod and the eye candy and the
Yeah.
I,
Well,
it's
even
like
the word
it's so
sovereignty, it's all about me. It's about what I need
self-orienting.
and what I want. And I have to live by that truth at all times because then I'll be sovereign. I mean, even some of our language that we use to empower people also kind of, if you feel a little bit more into it, that's not a word that inspires
Union.
partnership.
Yeah.
It's a word that inspires personal
Kindness.
empowerment.
Right.
Kind
So,
of fascinating.
So that's a good question for you, Kevin. Like where do those two, how can those two be married and live together? Like, how can you carry sovereignty or personal empowerment and still be in relationship and union with a beloved or partner?
Ooh, that's a great question. I did a summit not too long ago where I actually talked about that, this idea of, how do you be part of a team and like really be part of a team, like 100% in, we are a team, and yet still maintain, quote unquote, your sovereignty. And, honestly, I don't think it's that hard, yet a lot of people do struggle with it. So the first thing is, you have to be 100% in on being part of the team, right? So be part of the team, commit to this. Like if I want to be with you in an intimate relationship, I'm making a choice that we are a team. And as men, like we're sort of designed to compete, right? That's what we do. That's like testosterone is like fuels us to compete. And we compete with our male friends, we compete in the workplace, we compete everywhere. But you know where we don't want to compete is in our relationship. We want to come home from competing out in the world, and we don't want to do more competing when we get home, right? So we want to really be a true team, but we have to commit to that 100%, which means we have to show up as men and do our part in that, right? Committing to the team, there's no problem with that, and you don't lose your sovereignty unless you start compromising yourself and your own values and your own needs repeatedly, right? To the other person in the team. That's when you have a problem. But as long as you can stay solid in yourself and who you are, and as long as you can show up to that team and say, honey, I am 100% on board, but here's a need that I have, and this is important to me. And you're able to voice that. And then you get to work together to, like the classic example of that is, when we talk about men and women and sort of how they replenish their energy, right? And we talk about oxytocin versus testosterone. And we say, women, when they need to replenish, it's helpful for them to get together with other women and talk or do, self-care days and things like that, things that boost their oxytocin levels. And then they feel relaxed, right? And then they come back. But for men, it's like we need to do things that restore our testosterone levels. And for that, it's like cave time. It's sitting there watching the game for an hour for some men, or, hanging out with their buddies and doing something physical, working out, building something, right?
Being
That sort
alone
of
in
thing.
nature. Yeah.
Yeah, being alone in nature, whatever it is the thing that works for you. But the point is that how you maintain your sovereignty is you have good boundaries and you say, okay, I work a really high stress job. When I come home, I need 30 minutes of my cave time to do my thing. And once that's done, I will come back, I will show up, I will give you 100% of my attention.
Yeah. I got some oxytocin for you.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I
Great
love
answer.
that. That's a great compromise, because it's basically it's self-care. It's like, let me go resource myself so that I actually have a full cup to bring to this union that we're in.
I just did this the other day with my partner as well. I was out all day long. I had a really stressful day. I show up to her place and she's starting to make dinner. Usually we make dinner together. And I just looked at her and I was like, I got nothing in the gas tank. Like, I know I usually help you with this. I know you don't want to do it all by yourself, but I need to go sit down for like half an hour. And I did. And then I came back and I'm like, okay, now I've got energy to do this.
I love that.
That's great. That also really shows a willingness to be responsible for yourself and for what's going on with you, and to be able to communicate that. I think so much of the time we get in the habit of mind reading, where we make assumptions about how our partner's feeling, and we're not communicating what's going on with us, or maybe we're over communicating what's going on with us, and our partner doesn't have room for themselves to also sort out what's happening with them. I know in my relationship, I'm a fast processor and my partner is a slower processor. So sometimes I can take up all the processing space, and he just needs a little bit more patience, a little bit more time to sort out what's happening with him. So, noticing that about yourself and your partner, to go, do you have a different rhythm that you need to respond to so that everyone can get on the same page? What do you think women could be doing differently in having better relationships with men?
Ooh. We talked about something earlier that we kind of went in a different direction and we didn't have time to really address. But you mentioned something earlier about sort of acknowledging men and the things that they do. This is really, really big for men. We want to feel seen. We want to feel acknowledged for the ways that we do show up. It really, really helps. So, we were talking in the context of the appreciations men can give to women and how much that relaxes her and, gets her turned on. But in the other direction, it's really, really effective also, because a lot of times, especially too, if let's say you have kids, right? And you just you're out working all day long, you come home, the first thing that is expected of you is you got to help out with the kids or the house chores or this or that. And a lot of times men just feel like they're slaves, like it's just they're nonstop working, right? And the reality is these things do need to happen, and it does take two people to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't feel like you're being acknowledged for how hard and how stressful it actually is for you, resentment builds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for her to simply say, I see the way you show up, I see how hard you work, and I really appreciate it, is huge. It's huge. And it's something a lot of men don't get.
Right.
Yeah.
We take each other for granted so much.
Appreciation goes so far. I think, one of the things that all humans really, really want is just to be seen. And appreciation is that, it is like taking the time to say, I see you and the effort that you're putting out and how you're showing up. And and it changes my experience. So not only like thank you and I see you, but like here's how it's affecting me and my
Mm.
experience.
I
I
think
got a
too.
couple more too, if you.
Okay,
Oh
great. Yeah.
yes, more lubrication. Yes, please.
Well, because your question was, what can women be doing? And
Uh-huh.
there's something that my wife used to teach all the time when she was with us, and she called it the 4 C's, and they're basically 4 things that women shouldn't necessarily be doing, and they are complain, criticize, compete, and control. Right.
Ding
So
ding.
if we look at those and we reverse them and do the opposite of those things, so what's the opposite of complain and criticize? It's share the appreciations, right?
Mhm.
And then just take the opposites of each one of those and do those things. And they're really not that hard. But, when you've got maybe years of resentment built up, right? It then becomes challenging because it's hard to share appreciations or, acknowledge him for the things that he does when you feel like he hardly ever does anything, or 8 times out of 10 he doesn't do, or whatever it is. So, you might have to start with resolving any of that past resentment before you can really get into a space where that works. But if you can just do the opposite of those 4 things, well, stop doing those 4 things and then do the opposite of them. That's really all you have to do. We will instantly respond to that. That takes us men from, yeah, I'm in a relationship with her, to I want to marry this woman.
I want to be
Yeah.
with her. Yeah,
I think too, we have we all of our brains are programmed for a negative bias. So what we tend to do is pay attention to all the things that are disappointing us. And we forget to amplify the things that are going right. And so you actually have to really train your brain to observe differently. I mean, they say it takes, I think it's 4 positive things to take 1 negative thing out of your awareness. So you really have to work harder to make it a habit to amplify all the good in your world, so that you're not just consumed with all the times you're disappointed and every time something doesn't go right. And why can't you just do it the way I've asked? You do it for the last 6 years. Why can't we get this figured out? Well, those things are so much easier to adapt when we're also being seen for our gentleness and for our generosity and for our compassion and, for all the times we do pick it up.
What do you call it, Leah? You call it like the emotional capital or the bank account or something? What's your analogy?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we can really trust somebody, we're building emotional capital with people all the time that we're letting into our life. And one of the things that I've noticed is that I will act out more of my patterns with people who I have a lot of emotional capital with, because we've established you love me, you like me.
Yeah.
And so some of the more sharp parts come up to the surface when we have more emotional capital. So we have to remember that, not to take that for granted, and hopefully get good at cleaning up our messes when we've made a mess. I think that's a part of adulting. Give us something else. I think you had a few more things on the list in regards to what women can do. You said the 4 C's, but the only one I really got in was complain, criticize. What were the other 2?
So compete is another
Compete.
one, right? So I was mentioning before, we compete all day as men. We don't want to come home and compete.
Yeah.
So
Let's collaborate at home.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Collaborate. Let's collaborate. So in other words, it's not when I come home, it's like, I need you to do this and why don't you do that? And there's just a sort of adversarial, I'm stepping in and being your boss. And then there's this competition over who's in charge kind of thing.
Right.
That doesn't work at all, but work collaboratively. How can we work together? Remember, team. This is team. So there's that. And then there's also the opposite of control, right? So a lot of times, in fact, I just heard you say something a moment ago, Leah. It was like, you were emulating a woman who was not happy, and she was saying, how come you never do it the way I want you to do it, right? And this is a really important thing that I know a lot of women struggle with. They have an idea of how they want something done, right? And so they want him to do it exactly the way they want it done.
Yeah.
But that's not what's important. What's important is the end result. Does it get done, and does it get done appropriately, right?
Yeah.
And so when it comes to controlling, women want to kind of micromanage, and they want to tell you got to do this, that, and the other thing. That drives men insane.
Nitpicky.
God,
It's
yeah.
nitpicky and annoying. Don't do
Yes,
that,
it's
ladies.
the worst. And it's such a bad habit to break.
It's a very difficult one for a lot of women to
Yeah.
break. But so the opposite of that is giving him a task, telling him, here's what I need done, and then letting him figure out how to do it on his own.
Yes.
And then if he does a good job, you reward him for that by appreciating him and saying, wow, that's really cool that you figured that out and you did it in a way I never even would have thought of, right? Too many women get attached to, you didn't do it exactly the way that I wanted it done. And it's like, did it get done?
Yeah.
Wow, what's the end result? What's the complaint about?
This is where I think women don't take enough responsibility for the partnership, because we have this idea that my way is the best way. And then we get fixated on that. And then we drive everyone crazy when they don't do it to the way our method would have done
Standard.
it. And then we're tired and we're pissed that we're tired. And we wonder why we never get any help.
Create our own hell, man.
And then we're in like the martyr saboteur of our life, where we're looking around going, why am I angry all the time? Why don't I get any help? And it's like you're sabotaging the support that you're asking for when you become controlling. So true.
Yeah. And I will add to that, ladies, like, I get it. Sometimes it's painful to sit there and watch him go through this process as he
You're
stumbles
like, boy,
and
he's
bumbles.
doing it all wrong.
yes, totally.
But think of it this way. You got, I don't want to compare men to children. That's not what I'm trying to do. But if you think about it this way, sometimes with children, the best way for them to learn is to watch them make mistakes, as long as they're not going to end up with a permanent lifelong injury, right? Or disability. It's like, sometimes you just got to let them do it, figure it out, and stumble a bit. And then they really learn how to do it. There are going to be those circumstances, ladies, where you know exactly the way it should be done, and you want him to do it that way, but just let him figure it out on his own. You know, as long as you're not going to lose a ton of money, no kid's going to lose an eye. Like, as long as something like that there's no real serious consequences, just let him figure it out. He will come back feeling so proud of himself that he's figured it out. And the problem is that when you start doing the controlling thing, not only is he annoyed by it, right? But you end up getting into like the worst position you can possibly be in when it comes to polarity. And that is being his mother.
That's
you end up taking the mother role, and it is just death to a relationship.
Death to sex.
That's
That
a
is
fact.
for sure.
It's not, unless you're in some kinky situation, you're doing mommy little boy role playing or something. But that's totally different.
That's a different kink. But and I think too, like when he does it even better than you, have a moment of being like humbled.
Appreciation.
Yeah, for that, and just going, let that talk back to the part of you that thinks that your way is the best way. And it can be a moment of real tenderness and sweetness. And I think it also blossoms more respect that you can have for your man. So like make space for that to exist, and then be delighted by it. I think this piece around when a woman parentifies things, their partner, nobody wants that. I mean, and then he loses his confidence, and that goes back to the criticism. It's like when you're controlling and having to do everything a certain way, and then he's going to fail over and over, that knocks his confidence down. How is that going to be sexy? We want to lift our guys up.
Yeah, I mean, from a yin and yang perspective, we live in such a yang dominant culture where productivity is what's valued, and getting shit done, and what's your status, and all those things have value, whereas like just being and resting and receiving and allowing, the yin side of life is less valued. And it seems to me that everyone is racing in this yang dominant society. So women too are like, well, he's got to do it this way. This is what needs to get done. And I always have to micromanage because he doesn't know how to do it right. So she's like kind of stuck in her yangness, which leaves no room for his yang to come forward. And when I say yang, everybody, I'm talking about masculine energy and feminine energy. And so I think this is such an incredible opportunity for all genders to find their polarity within the relationship.
That leads me to a question I wanted to ask you, Kevin, which is, okay, where does the masculine and feminine and polarity come into your teachings, if it does?
Well, it definitely does. I mean, I use the word polarity, although these days, sometimes I try to kind of consciously leave it out just because there are so many people out there in the space right now teaching polarity stuff. And, some of it's good. There's some people out there teaching some good stuff, but then there's a whole lot of BS out there when it comes to polarity. And so I say that word, and then like some people are like, yes, and other people are instantly triggered by it. So,
Right.
But the reality is that polarity does exist in relationships. There is no denying it. The entire construct of the reality that we live in is based on opposites or
Polarity.
duality, or
Right.
polarity is another word of saying it, right? So the masculine and the feminine is just one microcosm of that macrocosm, right? It absolutely exists. And to deny that it exists, I think does a big disservice to men and women when we try to tell them, everybody's the same. We're all on equal footing. We, try to smooth it all out and make it all the same. It's really not good. So we have to, of course, acknowledge that polarity is a thing, and that establishing healthy polarity is of benefit to both parties in the relationship, right? But then we have to talk about, what does healthy polarity look like? And that's where the conversation really gets off the track in a lot of spaces out there in the, people are coining the term manosphere, right? There's some really unhealthy teachings around what that means.
I haven't heard that yet. Manosphere.
Yeah, that's all the people that are out there that are just teaching all like the man stuff, like how do it, I'm not going to mention any names of people who are out there doing it, but some are good, some are really not good. But it's that idea of, okay, what does that even mean, right? To be like, if we're talking to men specifically, what does it mean to be a healthy masculine man? And that's a whole conversation, several sessions probably in and of itself, just to really work through what that means. Because so the way I teach it, I won't go into the whole thing, but just to kind of talk about it a little bit, is I basically talk about the 3 stages of the masculine, which is, the old school sort of macho asshole masculine who doesn't care about her needs and thinks of her as property and is controlling and all of that. And then the response to that was to swing to the other end of the spectrum, which is this sort of softy new age guy who, is just, whatever you want, like doesn't really have a backbone, doesn't really step up, doesn't really lead, doesn't really, step into the role of provider or protector, and wants everything to be equal and all that. No polarity there, right?
Right.
And so then the next stage in that is realizing that you can take the best pieces of both of those and bring them together, which is why I call it the integrated masculine, because you do realize that as the male, it is your responsibility to be the protector, right? Because nature made you physically bigger and stronger. That job falls on your shoulders, whether you want it or not, right? So you realize, I need to be the protector. I need to be the provider for my family, right? I need to step up and lead and take charge and make sure things are happening, right? But at the same time, I also want to take her needs into account, her feelings into account. I'm not here to dominate and control and say, that's it, this is the way it's going to be. I'm here to say, hey, I have an idea. Here's what I think we should do. Will that work for you? No? Okay, I got another idea. How about we do this? So I'm leading, right? But I'm taking your feedback into account. And then I'm helping bring that into reality. That's one of the things that we're best at. Like, I mean, obviously women can bring a lot of things into reality also. So don't get me wrong on that. They bring like the ultimate thing into reality, which is us. But this idea that, like, I've noticed, at least in my own relationships, that a lot of the women have really been sort of the muse. They've been the inspiration and the idea behind a lot of either what we created together or even what I created on my own outside. Like, they were the spark for that. And then me as the masculine, just not to say that women are grounded in reality, but me as the masculine grounded in reality. It's like, then I make it happen, right? And I figure out how to make it happen. Doesn't mean I always do it on my own. I might need, help in doing that. But those are ways that we can take all of those things together, right? And bring them together into what I would call an integrated or more healthy type of masculine. And if you can do that, if you can show up in that way, where you are being a healthy masculine, that creates safety, which is what we talked about earlier. And once she feels safe that, oh, he's got that role, then she starts to soften and relax and go back more into her feminine. But this is a wonderful thing about women, but that is also sometimes challenging, is that in the absence of a healthy masculine presence, you will just step in and fill that role. Watch any single mother you've ever known, right? Because they have to, right? There's no man to step up and do the man stuff. So they just do. They get in their masculine and they do it because they have to. But the problem is that because they've had to for so long, they get stuck in that role, right? And then they have a hard time letting go and getting back into their feminine. So one of the ways that the man can help with that is be that guy. Be that best version of yourself, that healthy, integrated masculine. Create that safety in the relationship that signals to her, he's got this, I can let go.
Beautiful. To the integrated masculine.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. Now you have someone to follow. You know, I'm always telling my male clients, I'm like, you need a man muse. You know, somebody like they could be someone that you don't know, someone in movies, or they could be Kevin Anthony. Kevin Anthony is the perfect man muse model.
Like a great man muse. That's great.
I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but yeah, absolutely. If I can at least inspire a few men to be better versions of themselves, I feel like I've done something good.
Then you're doing it right. Yeah. So where can people find you?
The best way to find me is to go to my website at kevinanthonycoaching.com. That is the main portal for everything that I'm doing, from my coaching programs to the Love Lab podcast to my YouTube channels and a whole bunch more stuff.
I love it.
Yeah. Check out the website, you guys. We're going to have in the show notes all the links for Kevin, including some of his great courses and how you can work with him and coach with him. Also, I've been on the podcast, the Love Lab podcast, so I will link that episode. And thank you so much, Kevin. We can't wait to have you back. There's already so many streaming questions I have for you. I wish we had more time.
I would love to come back. And I also want to say, Leah, your appearance on my show was a really highly watched show. It actually did really well.
Yay.
People really loved it. So thank you.
Fantastic.
It was my honor. All right, y'all. Don't worry. The show's not over. We still got the dish coming right up. So stay tuned.
Now, our favorite part, the dish.
Okay.
Kevin Anthony. What a love.
Yeah.
What a sweet man, doing such good work in the world. And he has been through some pretty deep, intense things in this world. And I think that really, talk about an integrated man. Like he's really integrated a lot of shadow, dark, hard, bottom of the ocean kind of experiences into
I wish we would have asked him more about that.
Yeah, who he is as a coach and as a guide for the masculine and
I know he's been very open about, the passing of his wife, who I think he started all of this work with.
Yeah.
He brings that up a lot on his show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the full story of that yet, but
yeah. Well, I just love, also just the tangible examples that he gives and like the things that he's really sharing with the audience around how to create more trust within a relationship, how to create more safety, more of a container, more of a landscape for the partnership to thrive.
Yeah, and I love his dedication to the turned on woman. And inspiring men to investigate and to gain some skills and to broaden their awareness and to realize that there's lots of ways for everyone to get their needs met. It's all about shifting the nature of the question and then putting some things into action that, again, like you mentioned, generates safety, generates trust, generates openness. We just tapped the very tip of the surface when it comes to like really great practical things he's providing
really
to men
great
in particular
things. Yeah. Check out his podcast, the Love Lab podcast. And yeah, he's just got so much. He was on our most recent summit. We might have him back again on another summit. We'll definitely have him back again on the podcast. We are actually in a group called the Intimacy Alliance, which is a whole bunch of experts, over 50 sexperts at this point. And he's one of the few men. There's only like 2 or 3, and he just holds the masculine so beautifully in that container of like lots of feminine and Shakti. That's very cool.
Yeah, speaking of which, you guys, stay tuned to some announcements with dates that we're going to have coming up. We're going to be doing a series of summits. We've been inviting a collection of amazing experts to teach to you some of their tips and tricks. We're going to be having, each month is going to be like a different theme. Then in January, it's going to be all about, being intentional with the new year. How do you want to have better intimacy, better sex? Coming up in 2026. And then for Valentine's Day, it's going to be about romancing either the beloved, if you got one, or how to experience Valentine's Day on a whole different level as a single person. So we've got lots of good things in store. And don't forget, if you're in the Santa Barbara area, Willow is having regular Tantra speed date events for all of you who want to get a little taste of Tantra.
It's very good Tantra 101 at those events.
How can people find out about the Tantra Speed Date?
Go to tantraspeeddate.com and you can type in any city. There's over 58 cities around the world. We're international now. So
cool.
Yeah, you go to Tantra Speed Date in Portugal. It's this similar kind of event you'd see in Santa Barbara. So there you go.
Nice. All right. Thanks, friends.
Much love.
Thanks for tuning in. This episode was hosted by Tantric Sex Master Coach and Positive Psychology Facilitator Leah Piper, as well as by Chinese and Functional Medicine Doctor and Taoist Sexology Teacher Dr. Willow Brown. Don't forget, your comments, likes, subscribes, and suggestions matter. Let's realize this new world together.